All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Fresh Start Coaching How to Write a Book presentation. This is one of many presentations that I'll be doing on how to write a book. So the host or facilitator is yours truly, Eddie B. Love, CPC. We'll get into who I am, but I want to get straight into the information that you came here to listen to. So how to write a book. That's what we're all here to do. That's what we're here to learn about. That's what we're here to talk about. So I'm so glad you joined me. I know it's Thursday night, Thursday evening, and you're taking valuable time away from your busy schedule, your productive life to listen to me. So thank you so much for joining. The hardest part about writing a book is getting started, and that's what this webinar is designed to do. So I definitely want you to follow up with me, ask questions, so I'll leave some time at the end of this webinar. I scheduled it for an hour, but if we can chop it in half, that'll be perfectly fine. But I do want to take some time to answer your questions and make sure that you reach out to me. So make sure you reach out to me. My email address is freshstartcoachingllc@gmail.com. So again, that's freshstartcoachingllc@gmail.com, or you can go to my website. So it's freshstartcoachingllc.com. So who's Eddie? Again, yours truly. I'm the author of 2 books. So my first book, Escape from Poverty, 28 Ways to Win at Life, was a self-published book. I used the Kindle Direct platform, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the Kindle Direct publishing platform, which was formerly known as CreateSpace. So this same platform used to be known as CreateSpace back when I published back in 2015. It's since been acquired by Amazon. And the good thing, I'll talk a little bit about that publishing platform later on. So I'll save it for later. But the second book was called Let's Talk About Love, the blog book. So in 2016, I followed up with a second book. And this book came about because I was doing relationship blogging at the time. And I also was hosting a podcast called Where's the Good News, where I was interviewing local people here in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I reside. And just getting a lot of good traction, a lot of good content for my brand. And I decided to take a lot of those articles that I had written for other magazines and my personal relationship blog, because I had a relationship blog called Let's Talk About Love, or LTAL. And I had a lot of great conversations, coaching clients, relationships developed, partnerships developed from writing about relationships. So I decided to publish all that information in my second book. I said, hey, I know how to write a book. I know how to publish a book, self-publish a book. So I'm going to take another crack at it. And I wrote, Let's Talk About Love. I'm also a certified professional life coach. This is something I did back in 2014. Became a certified professional life coach by the Life Coaching Institute of Orange County, which is now, I believe it's called the Life Coaching Institute. I believe it's just Life Coaching Institute, but they are an ICF certified program. That's the International Coaching Federation. It's one of the basic standards for formal coaching. Still kind of like the Wild Wild West when it comes to life coaching, but I talk a little bit more about life coaching and what happens next, right, after you write your book. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. I'm also the CEO of Fresh Start Coaching LLC, which is a life coaching company. This is the second life coaching company that I've started. The first company was called HaWoo, Here All Winners United, LLC, which I started that company right around the time I published the first book. I'm also the co-host of Champagne Lovers, which is a lifestyle and relationship podcast that I host with my lovely wife, Shapira. And we do champagne reviews in addition to have lively discussions about relationships. I'm also the founder of Black Charlotte Business Coalition, which is a 6,000 member group. It's an online group, Facebook group that I started back in 2016. My wife and I started back in 2016, and it's since grown to over 6,000 members. So from a networking standpoint, great avenue. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I did that and just give some insight and tips and pointers on what you can do after you write your book. I'm also a board member for the Sickle Cell Partners of the Carolinas. I didn't spell it out there. I just used the acronym there, but SCPOC stands for Sickle Cell Partners of the Carolinas. So my wife and I are both on the board for Sickle Cell Partners, which is a great organization that we advocate for sickle cell awareness, to raise awareness around that hereditary disease. So let's jump right into it. So why are you here? What is your why? Let's start there. So why do you do it? Why do you do what you do every day? Why do you go to work every day? What motivates you? Where do you come from? That's such a loaded question. Why do you do it? But you have to ask yourself this question. Now, some of you on this webinar may have already written a book, or if you access this webinar, because it will be recorded, this recording will be shared on different platforms, but you may have already written a book. You may be pretty far along, but I ask you to just listen and sponge up this information, share it with someone who may need this information, or consider it for your next book, for your next publication. But any information I feel is going to be helpful if you're in the personal development arena or trying to grow. But why do you do it? That's the number one question. And it leads to the second and third question, but who motivates you? Who is it that motivates you? Is it your spouse? Is it your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad? Is it your children, brother, sister? Or are there role models? Are there professional role models, business role models that you look up to, and people that you know from the community, whether it's your pastor, your pediatrician from when you were a child, your lawyer, your counselor? I mean, who motivates you? Who gives you that push, that extra drive to want to succeed, to want to be successful, to want to be a positive individual and contribute to the betterment of mankind? What will your legacy be? This is one of my biggest questions, right? What will your legacy be? Because all this happened after I turned 30 years old. So funny story about my wife, my daughter, and myself. We all have really close birthdays, right? So my daughter's born on July 6th, I'm July 8th, and my wife is July 10th. So my daughter being born on the 6th, she came home on my birthday, right? So on July 8th, 2012, I had a little baby in my arms. And that's when I really started thinking about what my legacy will be. And the best way to capture that legacy, the best way to pass down that information, to pass down that knowledge is to put it in a book, record what your thoughts are. Because one thing you have to think about when you leave this world, when you leave this earth, which was part of the motivation for my first book, my father passed away in 2014. And when my father passed away, I did some serious soul searching, and I did not know how to grieve. The main method of grievance for me was writing the first book, writing Escape from Poverty. So I used that energy and funneled that energy and channeled that energy into creative energy. And I wrote that first book. I went away to a hotel for 3 or 4 days, shut the cell phone off, no social media, and I was just focused on my legacy. What do I want to leave behind? So that's something to consider. What will your legacy be? And you have to put your name on something. When we think about our legacy, when we think about what we're passing down, the best thing you can pass down outside of wealth or land is knowledge, is information. And if you have a specific skill set, if you have knowledge on a specific subject area, the best people you can pass that on to is your family. So look at the book as a form of an heirloom, or financially, right? Because when you think about writing a book, there's a royalty that, depending on how you publish, we'll talk a little bit about how you publish, but there'll be a royalty check that'll circulate in your family, in your generation, till the end of time, right? So that's something to think about. So moving into step two, formulate your title. The best way to formulate that title, if you don't have one already, is to start a brainstorming session. And when we say brainstorming session, that means that no idea is a silly idea. The only silly idea is one that you didn't write down or didn't put on paper or didn't type up or whatever the case may be. You didn't share it. You didn't record it. You didn't document it. So a brainstorming session is random ideas Maybe you do it with another person, or you do it by yourself. You write down every single idea around the subject matter that you're focused on. That could potentially be a chapter, that could potentially be the title. I mean, just put all the information you can about this idea on paper. So that way you can sit down and you have one place to look at, right? It's gonna look a little bit like Scrabble or like the board from Soul Train back in the day where they had to, spell out the words or find the word, but start a brainstorming session. You may be all over the place, but you'll have one place to look at that information, whether you type it or write it down. So that's the best thing to do. And it's always good when you have other people to bounce those ideas off of, but sometimes that may not be the case. So you'll have to do this by yourself, or write down every crazy idea you can think of that you could potentially use as a title. Now the title has to pop. And when I say the title has to pop, you have to think about everything that's going on in the world. You have to think about the popular trends. You have to think about music, fashion. What are some of the things that are the terms that are being said, some of the phrases, or make sure it's something that's going to appeal to people. It has to appeal to people. And it leads me to the next bullet, which is it can't be cliche. It needs to be catchy and not cliche. When you think about escape from poverty, this leads down to the bullet on it needs to ignite emotion for people at first glance, right? When you see the word escape, the word poverty, the word win, the word life, these are words that incite emotion. So if you start thinking about power words or action verbs, I mean, you want to make sure that it's going to ignite emotion from people at first glance. What's going to make your book title pop off the shelves? It needs to be easy to digest, easy to understand. You don't want to go over people's heads, right? Because depending on the type of book that you're writing, there's all different types of books that you can write. You can write an expository book, a descriptive book, a narrative book. But again, the title is very, very important, and it has to distinguish you from everyone else. Has to be short, sweet, to the point. One of my best phrases I like to use is all meat and no fat. So your title has to be all meat and no fat. Get straight to the point. Because if someone's going to choose your book over 10,000 other books in Barnes and Nobles or in Borders or on Amazon, then you want to make sure it's a good title. And it's not cliche, right? I said, think about some of the things that are going on, the current trends. You got things like lit and hot, and it's a whole plethora of cliche phrases that you can use, and people do that, and it works for them. But you have to think: will it stand the test of time? Will this title be something that people are going to read 100 years from now? Right? One of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that book was written almost 100 years ago. But that title is still catchy. It still ignites emotion at first glance when you think about it. Okay, so that's very, very important. It needs to be simple and easy enough for anyone to understand. Again, you don't want to go over people's heads unless you're writing a dissertation, or you're a doctor, or you're writing a specific type of book on a specific subject matter. Then it doesn't matter what your title is. It could be a whole sentence, as long as you go about it your own way in the format that's going to be designated for that type of book. So it just depends on the type of book that you're writing. It needs to look good on marketing materials. And when we think about marketing materials, a hat, can it fit on a t-shirt? And if you do acronyms, right? One of the things that I do a lot with Escape from Poverty is I'll do EFP 28. And we're in an era where everybody's hashtagging. Everybody's doing a hashtag, or everybody's doing a catchphrase. Well, anything you see that I posted in certain areas, because not all platforms you use hashtags, but in the appropriate spaces, you'll see me use EFP 28 or LTAL. And that's Let's Talk About Love or Escape from Poverty. And if I were to create a branding apparel line or put it on a hat, or it's something simple, something easy to make a logo from. So it needs to look good on marketing material. So that's something to keep in mind. Maybe you pick your title and pick your words carefully so that you can use specific acronyms. I've always been one to do that. Think about that. So moving on, step 3, creating chapters. So create your chapter. So it's very important, and this bullet should probably be up a little bit further at the beginning or somewhere near step 1, because you want to start thinking about all this stuff as well, like how big is the book going to be? Because there's a certain format and a certain template that you want to use if that book is a children's book, or if it's just a paperback, a nonfiction paperback. Like one that I like is 6x9 format. You have 5x8. So depending on the type of book that you're doing and the type of information that you're sharing, that's going to dictate the book size and format. But again, you want to look up the templates online, and it's just as simple as doing a Google search. And there's all kind of free templates that you can actually use and upload your writing or your information from a Word document or from a PDF, and you can upload that information right into it to format it. I'll talk about some of the resources later on that you can use once you get the book written, once you get all your information. That there's a resource that you can use where people will do it for you. People will format your book for you in the specific size and format that you want for that type of book. So start looking at that. Start looking at standard templates for paperback books, or if you plan to do a hardcover or hardback book, look at the standard template sizes for that, because it's going to vary. And again, depending on where you want to write or what area you're writing about, there's certain sizes and formats, and also where you live, because the UK has certain formats that they prefer over the formats in the US. And of course, writing style, there's different writing styles that you want to look up as well. So some are more standard than others. APA is one. So there's different writing styles that you want to make sure that you look up and take a look at when you start formatting that book. One thing about self-publishing is you want to make sure you have a good editor. However, people kind of freestyle and do their own thing these days, as long as it's almost like having a conversation. I read some books now, and it's almost like having a conversation. So again, you want to make sure that you have some formal punctuation, and make sure you have a good editor, someone that looks over the information for you. But start considering these things on the front end as you format your book. Also, the color of the pages. I mean, do you want it to be white? Do you want it to have the cream, nostalgic, older look, the font? All these things are very, very important to start thinking about with size and format. So again, this is something that you may start thinking about before creating chapters, but I wanted to make sure we include this information early so you can look up the one that's going to work best for your information. Creating chapters, it goes back to the initial brainstorming bullet. You have to close your eyes and go to a place. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the reader. And you have to have multiple perspectives when you're thinking about these chapters. Again, you want to make sure it's impactful. You want to make sure it's all meat, no fat. For an example, when I closed my eyes and went to a place in writing that first book, I took myself to a place of being a young man, a young individual, young Black man in America, and me sitting down, having a conversation with myself and saying, what would I want to know about in life? And what is the order in which I need to receive or process that information? So with Escape from Poverty, my first chapter is keep God first. Whether you're spiritual, and I get into it in the book, whether you're spiritual, whether you're religious, there is a supreme architect. There's someone that created all this. And I wanted that person, the reader, to start there. I wanted them to start with their relationship with God. Second chapter, I love me some me. that chapter deals with self-confidence, right? So you have to close your eyes and go to a place. Where do you want the reader to go? And as you're creating your chapters, you have to think about some of the things we're going to talk about later on, like what happens next. But if you're a chef, if you are a mechanic, if you're a realtor, if you're an artist, you're a teacher, if you're a preacher, where do you want that person to start out on this journey as a young artist? Where should that young, what is the first thing that that young culinary chef needs to know or needs to understand? What is the first thing that that young road warrior, that truck driver or NBA player, doesn't matter, whatever the profession, you pick it, you name it, but you have to be able to go to that place and build that bridge for that person with a starting point and an end point. Because basically what you're doing with these chapters is you're creating a map. You're creating checkpoints for the reader as they read and process that information, as they go on that journey, because everyone's going to process that information different. So that's why you have to close your eyes and go to a place that is going to be a place of multiple perspective, open-mindedness, where you can deliver this information to where it's not going to go over anybody's head. So you're speaking to your target audience, but a man on the street or a woman on the street can pick up this book, pick up your information, and they can go on that journey and get something from it. That's why the chapters are so important. Okay. So create a list of words and formulate chapters. So skipping down to that one, create a list of words and formulate chapters. This is something that almost like a music album. If you think about a music album, if you remember how CDs used to work back when we had CDs or used CDs, I haven't seen a CD in a while, but everything's MP3, everything's digital. But when you went to song number 1, there was an intro. The second song may have been a catchy title that's been on the radio for a while. Third one, it just took you on a journey, right? To where the midpoint, you had that climax, and then the later half of the album, it would kind of just smooth and mellow on out, and you can just groove with the whole album. So it'll just be a journey, right? Just bring you up, build up, climax, and then turning point, and just kind of smooth everything on out and end on a high note. And that's how you want to think about your chapters as you formulate those chapters. One thing that was important for me, especially with Escape from Poverty, was to take that person on an internal journey and then work my way out to external, where you're dealing with people, where you're dealing with, one chapter is called Outwork the Competition, right? So as you're dealing with people, as you're dealing with external factors, there was a buildup as to when that happened or when I introduced certain pieces of information. So look at it like you're designing an album. You don't want to start off too strong, but you do want to build up, right? Have a good midpoint to where you give them meat, all meat, no fat, and just keep them on a good high note towards the end, but you have to mellow out and summarize some of the things that you initially said, or come back to certain points that you had on the front end to reinforce certain information or certain chapters that you want the reader to receive. So very, very important how you formulate those chapters. Now, write the title of each chapter on a blank page. This is especially important, and it really helped me out. And again, maybe this is not your format. Maybe this is not what you do when you write your book, but this is what I did with 2 books. And it'll be what I do on the 3rd and 4th and 5th book too. But write the title of each chapter on a blank page. The reason I did that is because sometimes, or I'll say it like this, writer's block is real. There'll be some days where you don't know what to write. Just like now, maybe you don't know where to start. You don't know what to write down first, right? But writer's block will happen. It'll hit you. The advantage of writing down those chapters, those titles, the title of each chapter on a blank page is I can look at that list of chapters, look at that list of titles, and I'll get inspired. I'll get inspired by a specific topic. And what I would do is I would just research on that specific topic for the next hour, sometimes the next day, sometimes the next 2 days. But everything that I take in, if the chapter was called Activate Faith, then everything that I take in, right, is around faith. I have a chapter called Trust Your Intuition. So everything that I took in for that day or two was around intuition, from articles to research to just anything you can get your hands on, books, documentaries, movies, just take in everything you can about that particular title, and then you're gonna write something. So now I can come to that chapter, that title, I'm gonna talk about in a little bit in the next step 4, but you can always come back to that particular area that you get inspired on. And there'll be sometimes where you'll bounce around. Maybe I'll write a sentence in this one particular area, or I'll come over here and write a paragraph. But looking at everything in one place gives you that opportunity to inspire yourself and do additional research and figure out exactly what you want to flow with. And when you look up, you may have a completed chapter, whereas you got 30 more to go with nothing in it, nothing but blank titles, nothing but chapters. But everything that you poured into was on this one particular subject. So very, very good tactic. It helped me out a lot. And that's why it's important to organize the flow of those chapters, because if you think about the flow that you want that reader to experience, the titles, those chapters, I know I'm using title and chapter interchangeably, I'm using both words, but I'm talking about the chapters, that won't change. The flow that you want them to go on won't change. So what I'm saying in this bullet here about writing it down on a blank page is that you can bounce around, right? But in the end result will be the flow that you designed, because you took the reader on a strategic journey. So now saving the data in one place. So that this is where I mentioned here previously, it's going to help you organize. And what I did with the different titles of the chapters is I use Google Docs. And in my Google Docs, what I would do is I would create a brand new folder or a brand new document with that title. So in my Google Docs, when I look at all my documents for Escape from Poverty, or all my documents for Let's Talk About Love, all the chapters were in there as well. So there'll be 28 chapters in there, right, with just the title. So I can click on any one of them and go in there and start adding information. And whether that information was articles, sometimes it was articles that I had to come back to, or books, or different reference points, because that's very important. You want to make sure you cite your sources. So as you write and as you get this different information, you're going to use statistics and all these different pieces of data. You want to make sure that you cite those sources. And that's why it's important to be able to save that data in one place, because if you ever have to reference those files or reference that information or state one of those sources, you have everything in one place. It's all organized to where you know where everything came from. The other good thing about using Google Docs and your Google account is everywhere that I had access to my email, everywhere that I could access my Gmail, which was pretty much anywhere, including my phone, I can go in and I can and put pieces of information in those areas that I need to put in those different areas. So that's a good thing. Portable hard drive is always good. You definitely want to have a backup hard drive, because if you lose all your information, you've been writing for 6 months, writing for a year, and your files get damaged, or your notebook gets lost or gets thrown away, lose your cell phone if you've been doing everything in voice recorder, whatever the case may be, you always want to have a backup. You always want to have a portable hard drive to save all your information as you go. And I always try and sync everything up. So everything that I'm doing on the Google Doc side, everything that I'm saving or uploading or adding there, I would also back up in a portable hard drive. And that's something that's going to help you out. So if there's ever any issues or concerns later on down the road, you always have the information stored. And it may be a legal situation where someone wants to come back and say, hey, you stole this information or you plagiarized this information. We'll be able to go back and access that portable hard drive, and also our time-stamped information in Google Docs. I always say good old index cards are good as well, because you want to be able to write things down. Buy your pack of index cards from the dollar store. Dollar Tree's prices just went up. It's 2022, so they went up to $1.25. So you can get your pack of index cards for $1.25, and you'll be able to record those thoughts on the fly as you're driving, as you're in the car. You pull over, obviously, red light or stop sign, whatever the case may be. So it's a good quick note. Maybe you want to write it down and be able to reference that later on or build off that. So keep a pack of index cards around. Get a notebook for ideas on the fly. So putting it in multiple places, it's always a good thing, because there's random ideas that are going to come to you. And I talk about this a lot with coaching clients, like with goal setting, is you want to write your goals down. One of the main reasons you do that, same thing with writing a book and getting those ideas out. There's so much chaos that takes place in the human mind. And we think about so much stuff, so many random thoughts. The moment we wake up, what am I going to wear? Is it going to be cold outside? What am I going to eat? I mean, all these different things, but there may be a good idea about the book that pops up in that random chaos first thing in the morning or before you're going to bed. So that's why the index cards, notebook, multiple places, but you want to always bring it back to one place, which will be your Google Docs, which will be backed up by a portable hard drive. And use voice recorder. I'm a big fan of voice recorder. However, you want to make sure you write down that information. So after you translate that information, you make sure it gets to the place where everything lives. That way you stay organized. And your finished product will be that much better. So definitely use voice recorder, but come back behind voice recorder to write those things down as well on the index card or in your notebook. And that'll make sure your ideas have a consistent flow. That's the main thing. So step 5, the writing process. This is the hardest part. So just a few recommendations. Pick a title to work on each week. So having those titles written down, having everything in one place where you can just look at that particular title. Maybe you have writer's block, no inspiration, do research on that one particular title all week. And then maybe you write on Friday, maybe you write on Sunday or Saturday. But you want to balance your writing and research. So you always want to do a good balance, a good mixture of both writing and research, because once you write your book, there's going to be a lot of people that will have access to that information. People are going to criticize you. People are going to quote you, both ends of the spectrum. There'll be people from educational to political to it doesn't matter, right? It does not matter. One of the funny things that just recently happened is my daughter is in 4th grade, and she told the kids at school that I was an author, and they Googled me. So now everybody at her school thinks she's rich and that I'm famous, which we both we know it's not true. But hey, let's speak it into existence. And I'm rich in spirit, right? But that's not the main reason that I wrote the book. I do want to say that because I want to come back to your why and your passion. It can't be about money. Let me make sure I say that, because I should have said that earlier. It can't be about money. It has to be about whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is that you're trying to, the change that you're trying to see in the world. That's what it has to tie into. What do you want people to get from this? What do you want your children's children, your grandchildren to receive from this? Can they take this information and start a new life with just this information from great-great-granddad? Right? Will they have positive or better relationships? That's what my second book was about. Let's talk about love, self-love, and positive relationships. And the first thing I say in the introduction is, I'm no relationship expert, I'm no relationship guru. So that just lets you know it's not about money. So you have to get that daily inspiration. So tying it back into this bullet here, you have to get that daily inspiration, and it has to be tied to your why. Why are you doing this? And who are you doing it for? Because if money's the motive, there's a lot of people out here that write books, but part of it has to be about what you're going to contribute to society, right? So the daily inspiration has to happen. I advise you to go on a journey of personal development, and this is going to help you get your inspiration. as you do your research, it's almost a healing process that's gonna happen for you. It's your first book. Because again, that's what it was for me after my father passed. This was my grievance period, right? I wanted to teach somebody and show somebody these steps that help me become successful in certain areas. They continue to help me and I continue to live by. So get that daily inspiration. Find a good editor. Find a good editor. So I'm going to talk about some resources here in a moment. Use Voice Recorder to just another good reminder, because there's going to be some things that you have to write down on the fly, and to get audible version, or to be able to say it how you want to say it when you do write it in the book. You're going to use the Voice Recorder, but make sure you get your good editor. And I'm going to give you some resources here at the end for where you can find editors and different people who design book covers, do marketing materials, flyers, all that good stuff. So step 6 goes into what happens next. The what happens next. So where will you publish your book? Are you going to self-publish, or are you going to find a publishing house? Typically, publishing houses will approach you if you're famous, if you're rich and famous, right? They'll give you a book advance up front, and you know, but a lot of times nowadays that's very rare. But again, you have to have a platform already. You have to be someone who's already in the public eye. NBA, NFL, actress, actor, director, model, something. I mean, this is just how it works when it comes to publishing deals from major publishing houses. But a lot of people are self-publishing. So I'm going to give you some resources on self-publishing and just finding an independent publishing company locally. So you can do that on social media. There's a lot of different ways you can find independent publishing companies that'll help you publish. How will you market your book? Are you going to do paid ads? Are you going to self-market? Are you going to do everything on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn? Are you going to create a personal website? Are you going to do a website? I always recommend people to do a website in addition to using social media. Some people say the websites are dead, websites are old, but still want to have a personal, professional website that you can send people to, just in case Facebook crashes or Instagram goes away, Twitter goes away. Where are you going to send people to? How are they going to get in contact with you if there's no social media or if all the apps shut down? So how are you going to market your book? Are you going to do vendor shows? That's something that you want to think about. So get into the community, find out who's hosting the local vendor shows, find out what they charge to pay to set up a booth or to get a table, and sell your books. This is something that you can do. How will you brand yourself? So the what happens next, that's the thing that I like to refer back to, like when it comes to branding, the book is the new business card. It used to be the elevator pitch, right? You do a 60-second spiel or 2-minute spiel on what you do and what you're all about and the time it takes to ride an elevator from top to bottom. But nowadays, you want to be able to put something in people's hands, leave something with them that allows them to connect with you, that allows them to understand you. And I promise you, this will lead to so many additional business opportunities. I've gotten jobs. I've gotten my resume pushed up higher because people found me on Amazon or saw that I was a published author on my LinkedIn profile. And it's a talking point. It comes up. I can remember when I first wrote Escape from Poverty, I was at breakfast. I was at a Cracker Barrel with a good friend of mine. And this friend had a lot of connections in the community and things like that. But in the county I was in, I wasn't in Mecklenburg County. I wasn't in Charlotte, but the county I was in, the county commissioner walked in. And the person introduced me, hey, this is Eddie Love, the published author, life coach. And, you know, he sold me to this person. And that person, you know, they looked at me like, hey, man, he's somebody, he's an author. And long story short, we developed a relationship after the fact, but it's a good networking tool. It's a good talking point, a good selling point, because we're always selling something and everybody's always buying something. And people are bridges. As you're building relationships with individuals, you never know how you can help someone. So your personal brand is very important, especially now. You see all the fuss about the metaverse and things are transitioning now. You hear a lot of talk about NFTs, and there's a lot going on with the digital world and these digital platforms. So at some point, you never know. I mean, if you don't have a platform or have branded yourself in that digital space, there may not be, I don't want to scare anybody, but there may not be any jobs and corporations and physical, as many options for people to go into and do things. So you're going to have some type of brand to distinguish yourself from everyone else. And that's the biggest thing that happens right now with people and relationships and do I like this person? Do I want to do business with this person? Because people are going to perceive you how they want to perceive. If you have a brand that speaks for you, then it helps them fill in the blanks a little bit easier. But find your tribe, and this all deals with, again, everything I'm talking about, social media, finding your cause. But where's your tribe? One of the main things I'm proud of, one of the main affiliations that I have is the Sickle Cell Partners of the Carolinas, right? Because it's a group that my wife and I both advocate for. Close family member that suffers from sickle cell anemia, and that's a part of our tribe. These are people out there in that nonprofit community that we support, that support us. There's individuals that I mentioned in the group that I started, the Black Charlotte Business Coalition. 6,000 people, started out with one person, but now there's 6,000. So how are you going to market this? Start your Facebook group, start your support group, start a meetup. Nextdoor.com, they have all types of groups for people 40 and up, or dog lovers, whatever you're into, but find your tribe, whether it's on the nonprofit side, whether it's just networking. You have to find your tribe. You have to build your social media presence and build your brand to where these people are going to buy whatever you're selling or support you with whatever movement, as long as it's positive, hopefully. But they're going to support you. Your tribe is going to hold you down. So when you publish the second and third and fourth book, when you do workshops and seminars, when you start traveling and doing different things on the road with your brand, going to vendor shows, your tribe's going to follow you, or they're going to refer you to someone else who will give you a business opportunity, or just put you in a good light, right? So that's the main thing. Think about what happens next. What happens after you write this book? Because again, the book is the new business card. People don't have time to digest your whole life story when they first meet you. They want to let you know that they're interesting. They want to tell you all about the great things going on with them, or they're trying to sell you something, right? So it's a balancing act when you meet people. But if you say, hey, I'm a published author, sometimes they'll buy it on the spot. This happens to me all the time. I'm an author. Oh, wow, really? It's on Amazon? That's always the first question. It's on Amazon, which leads me to the next area. I say, yeah, it's on Amazon. And they go right there and buy it right there in front of me. Or they'll go to my website. I send a lot of them to my website because there's advantages of going to the publishing, the person that the printing company, I'll say it like that. Because if you're self-published, you print on demand, right? So when you want to buy copies directly from Amazon, like me, for example, there's a specific cost that I get, wholesale cost that I get, which is a whole lot less than what the book actually costs or what I sell it for. So I can make a lot of money if I'm selling them myself on my website or hand to hand, right? As opposed to sending people to Amazon, them clicking on the link, because there's a processing fee for that. Amazon's getting their portion, and then depending on how much your book costs, you'll receive a percentage of that, and that'll be your royalty. So as long as you tie that to a specific account, business account, then it'll go straight into your business checking account every single month. So when your eyes are closed, no matter what you're doing, you're gonna get that check every month. So very, very important. So there's some independent publishing companies that you want to look at. JP Publishing, I can get you some additional information on him. The guy that I know, Mr. Joseph Pridgeon, has a publishing company where he helps individuals publish. Lulu.com is a place that you can do self-publishing. Kindle Direct, KDP.Amazon.com. So again, it was called CreateSpace when I initially published, but now everything flows under Kindle Direct. So again, just look at some of the resources that you have. There's a lot of information on social media. There's a lot of information just on Google that you can type in publishing companies or independent publishing companies, independent publishing companies near me. So there's a lot of different options there that you should receive. Marketing resources, there's a lot of different people that do editing, that do logos. One resource that I use a lot is Fiverr.com. So it's Fiverr.com. So whether it's marketing your book, and then I use a lot of people out of my group, the Black Charlotte Business Coalition, because there's individuals in there that do certain services from printing to logo design to website design. So if you create your own group, that's what I did. I built my own table. We're always trying to get a seat at somebody else's table. Well, build your own table, build your own platform, start your own networking group, social group, cigar club, whatever it is, right? And then you'll start seeing some of those professionals that do certain things that can help you with your brand building and with your book. But Fiverr is a really good resource. And these are my two books. So again, you can go to my website, Fresh Start Coaching LLC at gmail.com. I'm sorry, that's the email address. So Fresh Start Coaching LLC at gmail.com. And then my website is freshstartcoachingllc.com. But these are my two books, Escape from Poverty, 28 Ways to Win in Life. And Let's Talk About Love, the blog book. My lovely wife, Shapira, there on the cover. And there is the website. So hope you enjoyed this presentation. Hope you enjoyed this information. If you do have any questions, you can type them in the chat or just follow up with me after this presentation. I think anyone who's on right now should have my contact information because you received this link from me directly. So I do want to take your questions. So make sure you reach out to me so we can have a detailed conversation, whether it's email, whether it's via phone. Definitely want to continue the conversations. But any questions right now, type them in the chat. I'll be glad to answer for you. If not, I'm going to end the session because it is recorded. So I do want individuals to be able to access this information later on. I think we got a pretty good recording here. So thanks so much for your time. Let's see, I do have a question in the chat. Let's see. No question, but great session. Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate that, sir. Hopefully you found this to be helpful. And I am available for additional follow-up. So thanks so much for joining. Have a wonderful night. Peace.